So this is a brick stitch. As you can see, we've got these rectangular formations here that obviously resemble a brick. And I went ahead and did it in some red yarn so we can continue on with the theme we got going on here. Now to do the brick stitch, you're going to have to chain multiples of 4. So you need a chain that has an even amount of numbers, but it has to be multiple sets of 4 because each brick is going to require 4 chains. And then once you've created however many bricks you want across your row, you're going to chain 2 more. So go ahead and grab your yarn, make your slip stitch. If you don't know how to do that, I linked a video below. And then create your chain. Remember, you need an even amount of stitches and they need to be in multiple sets of 4. So I'm going to go ahead and do 20, which will give me 5 bricks. So once you've got your multiple sets of 4, go ahead and chain 2 extra. And this is going to create edging on both sides of your brick stitch. So the first step is to single crochet into the second chain from your hook. So you've got, it's not including this loop that your hook is through. So you've got 1 chain here and then you've got chain 2. So I'm going to go ahead and enter into there, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through again. So I just created my first chain here on my next row. So I'm going to stitch mark that, just like that. If you're a beginner, I highly recommend you do this. Sometimes when you're new at crocheting, it's hard to identify the stitches and where you're going to start and stop your row, so this will really help you to remember that that's going to be the beginning or the ending of whichever row you're on. So you've got your 1 single crochet in the second chain from your hook, and now you're going to chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. So now that you've got 3 chains here, down on your bottom row you're going to skip 3 chain spots. And you're going to enter into that 4th spot and you're going to do a single crochet. So you should have this kind of like this big long gap here. And then you're going to chain 3 again. You're going to skip 3 chain spots down here and enter into that 4th one with a single crochet. And there's your second gap spot. Chain 3 again. Skip 3 down below, go into your 4th one with a single crochet, and just continue that all the way down. So once you get to your last one, I chained my 3, and I'm going to skip my 3. I'm going to go into this last hole right there. I'm going to do my single crochet in there. And that should be your first row of the brick stitch. So when you're creating the brick stitch, it's made up of 2 different rows of different patterns. So we've already created our first row, which was that single crochet, chain 3, single crochet, chain 3, single crochet, chain 3, and we did that all the way across. Okay, so now that we're at the end of our row here, we single crocheted into that last chain space. Go ahead and stitch mark that if you need to, so you remember where to start when we turn our work. So go ahead and chain 3. This is going to count as our double crochet, and the reason we chain 3 is because it's about the same height as a double crochet, so that's going to technically be our first double crochet. Go ahead and slip stitch that 3rd chain. So go ahead and turn your work. Now remember, this is already our first double crochet of the row in our first chain space right there. So next we've got these 3 chains right here. We're not going to work into those. We're actually going to double crochet into this space down here. So go ahead and put 3 double crochets into that big gap right there. So there's my 3, and that's actually my first brick. So from that point on, you're just going to double crochet 3 into every single one of these gaps all the way across. So go ahead and do that. Alright, so I double crocheted 3 in each one of those gaps all the way across my row. I've got 1 in this last gap here, so I'm going to go ahead and do 2 more. If you don't know how to do a double crochet, I've linked a video down below that will help you out. So there's my last brick, my last 3 double crochets in that gaping hole there. And we've got 1 more stitch in our row, and we've stitch marked that from before. So go ahead and take that out, and you're going to do 1 last double crochet into that actual chain. And that will be the edging of our brick stitch. So basically, those are the 2 rows that it takes to create the brick stitch, and you're just going to go ahead and repeat those steps to keep making continuous brick stitches. I'm going to do a couple more rows with you so you understand. So from this point on, we put our last double crochet into the last stitch of our row. Now we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and we're going to go into that first chain space with a single crochet. Now we've got our brick here. We've got our 3 double crochets. We're not going to work into that chain. We're going to chain 3 like we did on that very beginning row. So again, we're not going to go into any of these chains. We're actually going to work into this little square space that has been created here. So go ahead and enter into that little hole with a single crochet. So we created another one of those long rectangle gaps. So next we're going to skip this brick and we're going to chain 3 again. And then we're going to enter into that little hole with a single crochet and just continue that all the way down your row. So chain 3, enter into the hole with a single crochet, chain 3, enter into that last hole with a single crochet. So we've got 1 more brick in our row. We're going to chain 3, and we're not going to go into the hole. We're going to enter into our actual last stitch here that we stitch marked. So go ahead and take that out, enter into that last chain spot with a single crochet, and that will be the last stitch of our row. So now we're going to chain 3, turn your work. Remember, we've already got this technically a double crochet in this first chain spot. So now we're going to work 3 double crochets into this gap. And there's our first brick of our next row. So just continue making 3 double crochets in every single one of these gaps all the way across, and you'll have another row of bricks.